what you'll find is that this is something people enjoy. They enjoy surprises. And so it's something that's been part of toys for years, whether it's Kinder Eggs or Hatchimals or LOL Surprise. We do think the way that we have implemented these kind of mechanics, and FIFA, of course, is our big one, our FIFA Ultimate Team and our packs, is actually quite ethical and quite fun, enjoyable to people.
You heard it here first, everyone. Not only have loot boxes been part of toys for years, but they're also quite ethical, quite fun, and gamers quite like them. Let me give you some context about what's going on here. So, the room that you're looking at and the meeting you're looking at is from the UK's Culture, Media and Sport Committee, and they are talking to Kerry Hopkins, EA's VP of Legal and Government Affairs. There are also some folks from Epic Games in the room, and the MPs that are present, the members of Parliament, are questioning the EA and Epic representatives about loot boxes and also just various things to do with their games and how that impacts the safety of children and things like that. The section of questioning relevant to this video starts with Brendan O'Hara asking about the ethics of loot boxes, and just the first thing that Kerry says starts us off on a bad track, man.
Can I ask you, both companies, do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games? Kerry?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was...
Whatever term you wish to apply to them, do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
Sorry, hold on. I forgot that EA products don't contain loot boxes, they're just surprises. What? Kerry goes on to say, we agree with the UK Gambling Commission, the Australian Gambling Commission, and many other gambling commissions that loot boxes aren't gambling, and we also disagree that there's evidence that leads to gambling. Instead, we think it's like many other products that people enjoy in a very healthy way, and like the element of surprise. She's then pressed on that with a question posed, to be absolutely clear, your loot boxes or surprise mechanics, you have no ethical qualms whatsoever with those? And she says, no, you're recharacterizing my language. What I said is the way we've implemented our FIFA Ultimate Team packs is ethical, because FIFA Ultimate Team really is the big earner for EA in terms of loot boxes. Loot boxes across the industry are a massive multi-billion-dollar mechanic to earn money, but for EA, the big draw is FIFA Ultimate Team. It earns them an insane amount of money every single year. And so then they ask, okay, what about the other games that you have beyond FIFA? And she says, for all of the games we have on the market that have randomized content mechanics, a surprise mechanic, a loot box, or whatever, I have no qualms that they are implemented in an unethical way. Now, the reason I've just jumped in with this straight away is because I wanted to get you that context of that little bit of conversation as fast as possible so we could talk about A, the fact that EA have literally just come out on camera in UK Parliament and said, yep, gamers like the loot boxes, chief. And then later in the discussion, in the committee meeting, she doubles down on it even further, saying, the packs, the surprise, that's fun for people. They enjoy it. They like earning the packs, opening the packs, building the teams, trading the teams. The thing about FIFA Ultimate Team is that it's an integrated, really well-designed mode in a game that we launched 11 years ago. All those pieces go together, and they're very balanced, and players love playing them. So, in a summary there, and yes, I'm paraphrasing her, but it is what she is saying, she is making the argument that an integral part of FIFA Ultimate Team, one of the puzzle pieces that is a linchpin of the entire experience, is the ability to pay for these loot boxes and, whether or not you believe in the definition, gamble to get whatever players you might end up getting and build your team. And to an extent, I agree that putting the team together out of a randomized selection of players that you get from packs is enjoyable. And she also says, to her credit, that apparently 85% of packs that get opened in FIFA are earned rather than things that are bought with external currency. And that's quite an interesting and remarkable statistic in my opinion. So that's cool to hear. But in the same breath, she is also giving validation to those paid loot boxes as part of that experience and saying that that is something that players like and enjoy. And regardless of whether she intended it or not, it comes across as so unbelievably tone deaf. So tone deaf. In an ecosystem right now in the gaming industry where gamers as a whole are so vehemently opposed to basically loot boxes in any form, like so strongly, it just seems like a huge blunder to come out and say, oh yes, let's talk about our basically microtransaction-driven, loot box-inspired system that we've got in FIFA Ultimate Team. Yeah, that's something that is very balanced, and players love playing it, and it's very ethical, and luck has been in games forever, and it's been in toys, and it's really fun. It just doesn't sell, man. And I want to be clear here, okay? I'm an EA game changer, right? Like, I've done stuff with EA in the past. I've got a great relationship with them. I was doing stuff with them at E3 this year. I like working with that company. But I also feel like it's important to hold the company accountable when they do things that are silly. And I think that this is a really silly moment in EA loot box history. And they're not the worst by any means. Like, some of the stuff that Activision is doing with Call of Duty right now is absurd. And for the most part, they're just sort of getting away with it. Like, the microtransactions in the multiplayer of Black Ops 4 are kind of disgusting. But a lot of people sort of turn a blind eye to it because it's like, it's Activision, they always do it. It's COD, it's always bad. But it's like, bro, this is really, really bad. And so I want to talk about it a little bit today. I want to dig into the topic of loot boxes just a little bit and get your opinions on it as well in the comments section as to how this should or could move forward in the future. So there's quite an interesting argument presented by Kerry here, okay? She says that she agrees with the UK, Australian, and multiple other gambling commissions, which say that loot boxes are not gambling and they don't lead to gambling. But in the build-up and in the question that she was asked, the committee said that they had seen loads of evidence that loot boxes do lead to gambling. So clearly right away there's a clash. And the conversation moves on to specifically the topics of the Netherlands and Belgium, because both these countries have a different perspective on gambling, or rather loot box enabling gambling and that sort of thing, to the UK and Australia, etc., which is what Kerry is specifically referring to. She's saying the rest of the world's on our side, and it's just the Netherlands and Belgium that are weird, and the committee is going, well, is it just the Netherlands and Belgium are maybe ahead of the curve and we need to catch up with them? So to break it down, what Kerry says is that the way that the Netherlands and Belgium see the loot boxes are that they clash with other laws that they have in the country, and it's very much a local law. It's not like a general ethical question necessarily. It's just a local law about gambling that might prevent loot boxes from being enabled in the game. And so the Belgian store doesn't let you do certain things in the game that you might otherwise be able to in other parts of the world. I believe the Netherlands haven't actually implemented things yet, but they've got some legislation and it hasn't been tested in court, but they're still trying to figure out how exactly it should be applied, and EA are going back and forth with them about that as well. So you've got different parties, different countries rather, in different parts of the world who are all kind of looking at each other right now going, they're doing it this way, and we're still in the kind of past, we haven't really moved on yet, and they're in the future, and should we be going in that direction, or have they overextended and should we pull back? And I want to ask you just your raw opinion. As a player, not necessarily someone that has researched it, although you might have done, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section, but as just a player of these games, do you, in your core, in your gut, feel like loot boxes can lead to and can encourage gambling? And then an extra layer on that, do you think, therefore, that any encouragement of gambling is something that should absolutely be policed very carefully, and especially when there are kids involved, there should be a load of limitations placed that aren't currently placed to prevent that from becoming harmful to those youthful people. That's a weird way of saying that. Youthful people. Now then, while you're writing your little comment in the comments section, letting me know what your opinion is on this sort of thing, my stance is that I hate loot boxes in games, but I hate them in games not because of the inherent nature of what a loot box is, but just because I feel like they end up being used in a manipulative way. And what I mean by that is that myriad games have loot boxes now, and unfortunately, I feel like nearly every single time I've ever seen them implemented, it's detracted from the experience. It's just made the game less fun for whatever reason. I mean, as a YouTuber, it puts me in an awkward position as well, because if content is locked behind a loot box, I have to make the decision ethically of, do I just pay an absurd amount of money in terms of Call of Duty, thousands of dollars to get these new supply drop weapons? Or do I essentially miss that opportunity for my job, for my career, and end up not paying that money, not getting that content, and just having to twiddle my thumbs and let people overtake me, let my kind of competition flourish, and let them do the unethical stuff? And for me, my stance has pretty much always been, I just don't really buy the loot boxes. So during Black Ops 3, for example, with the zombies mode, and during Black Ops 4 too, I was very hesitant to ever spend any money on COD points. I only actually spent COD points when I needed to for Easter eggs for charity, which was a huge charity event. We raised like $200,000. I bought some COD points there for that event specifically, but prior to that in the year, I hadn't spent any money on them. And it's just generally my stance is that I don't like these things being in the games, and so the best way to try and push for things to be designed in such a way that we don't need those things anymore is just to not put my money there. And so the mechanics would eventually, fingers crossed, hopefully become redundant and they wouldn't be implemented anymore. Unfortunately, that's just never really going to happen because they make the companies so unbelievably much money and people just spend on them addictively like crazy. But hey, I mean, I'm doing my little small part, I suppose. I also think that there is absolutely a case to be made. The instinctive argument is sound that if you have across the industry systems in so many games at this point which are promoting a chance spin of the dice, pay for item, but it's a mystery item crate, like a slot machine almost, and especially in cases where that can then be traded for real world money, where you can get something cool like a knife in CS and then sell it on the Steam store, things along those lines, I absolutely think that content could pose a risk to young, impressionable people who might then end up feeling like they are more inclined to do other sorts of gambling that are a little bit more serious. Now, of course, this strays right into the argument that, well, parents should be being careful about what their kids are doing online. And that's something that they brought up a whole load throughout this entire committee meeting, is that ultimately parents should be policing what their kids do. But the counterpoint to that is that in the same way that if you're a child, 12 years old, and you walk up to a casino, they're not going to let you in. With a lot of these titles that have loot boxes in them, you don't need to go through an age gate to get in there. You just need to jump on the game, and then boom, you've got access to this kind of virtual casino or whatever you would want to call it. I think that that's probably a little bit extreme. I wouldn't go quite as far as saying that wording is something that I particularly think is accurate, but my point stands. I think you see what I mean. So, I'm not a huge fan of loot boxes. Just generally, I think that they're a bit anti-consumer. They're certainly not fun, in my opinion. I really refute the claim made by Kerry here. I just think that they always detract from whatever game they're put into. Give me some examples, or rather counter-examples in the comments down below if you know of some, because I'd be curious to see them. But the thing I want to get to next is just that if you are here hoping for anything to change, then unfortunately, I've got really bad news for you.
Mr. Pinson, Mr. Wessing, I found your answers very evasive. Were you coached before you came here on how to answer questions? No, you didn't pay any external advisor to advise you on how to answer questions here today?
We did after our, I don't know what you call it, prep call with your committee, we did seek English counsel advice.
It shows.
The people in this committee meeting asking these questions are clueless.
So when you create a job, a game, I mean, when you create a game, what is the mindset? How do you go about deciding this will work, this won't? Is it just hit and miss?
They are completely clueless, and I'm sure they mean well. On the off chance that one of them sees this video, I'm going to give you some advice right now, okay? Brendan O'Hara, who asked that first question about ethics, if you're watching this or anyone else in the room, next time you get an opportunity to sit down with members of EA and Epic Games and talk about something that is one of the most inflammatory topics in gaming right now, or certainly the economic side of gaming and the commercialization of the industry, next time that happens, please sit down with someone, anyone, a grandkid, a niece, a nephew, your sister, your mum, your dad, whoever it might be, okay? Sit down with a family member that has actually played one of these games once in their life and just brush up on what everything means, because they were in there asking questions, and it was so painful to listen to because at one point, for example, there are a bunch of questions being asked about in-game chat, and they're saying, do you monitor in-game chat? And what are all the systems you got in place for in-game chat? And so Epic give answers about their in-game chat, and then it becomes clear maybe 3 or 4 minutes later that the guy asking the questions isn't talking about in-game chat, he's talking about voice chat. And because that distinction was not made, the last 5 minutes of the conversation were basically wasted. And it goes on and on and on and on in the same way that you've seen when Congress talks to people from Google or Facebook, like Mark Zuckerberg, for example. These conversations always end up with people being so woefully misinformed about the things that they're asking questions about that the conversation really is unproductive, it goes nowhere, they don't get to the root of the answers that they're looking for, and ultimately it means that the decisions that the Parliament is making, whether it's the EU or the UK or the US or wherever, the decisions they're making are uninformed. Straight up, these people in huge amounts of power are asking the most blitheringly silly questions. And it grinds my gears, man, because if there is genuinely a link between loot boxes in video games and children getting gambling problems when they grow up, then that's obviously something that they need to be protected from, right? In some way, shape, or form, whether it's parenting or otherwise, something needs to happen there, okay? I think that we can all agree on that. But if the government is asking questions that go nowhere near that topic in the depth that they need to, then getting to the point where we realize that those protections need to be in place is going to take an extra 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. And it's just going to hold us back from actually getting things done in this area. And it's depressing. It's just depressing. So on the one hand, Kerry, I think the point you made about loot boxes being really fun and entertaining and they've always been part of toys, moot in my opinion, really. I think that that's a massive kind of blunder for you to characterize it that way as you have. I listened to the vast majority of the committee meeting, not just a little slice, not just a quote out of context. I listened to a huge chunk of it, and I really think it came off poorly and misrepresented the way these things work in the games. And yes, that's in part to do with the fact that the questions are so ambiguous and vague, but it's just setting things up for failure and for fallout and for kids to potentially be at risk, maybe, if that is indeed something that we can scientifically prove is a problem, that these sorts of loot box mechanics in games does actually affect them. Anyway, moral of the story, because it's 2 a.m. and I just wanted to record this video because I saw the clip and then I just couldn't stop watching because of this dumpster fire in front of me. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, like I've said. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, I guess. Subscribe. Click the bell. The bell's really important. YouTube's been like slapping me across the face recently. Like my channel's just been, it's been in a rough spot, but hopefully that changes soon. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm MrRoflWaffles. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.